In France, a tiny village has attracted treasure hunters for the last 70 years.
Rennes-le-Château is one of the most mysterious places on Earth.
It's got buried treasure, it's got secret codes, it's got conspiracies.
It's all because at the end of the 19th century, the priest of Rennes-le-Château, Bérenger Saunière, became fabulously rich. And nobody quite knows how.
The big mystery about Saunière is where the money came from.
Some say the priest discovered buried treasure. But others claim Saunière uncovered a secret so profound, it could rock the foundations of the Catholic Church.
The truth is, Saunière is the tree that hides the forest.
The mystery of where Saunière got his money is only superficial. There are other things that go a great deal deeper.
This is the true story of the treasures of Rennes-le-Château. In the Aude region in the south of France, in the foothills of the Pyrenees, lies the village of Rennes-le-Château. Here, in 1953, an elderly French woman lay on her deathbed. Marie de Nano was ill and her health failing fast. Her friend, Noël Corbout, hung on her final words.
She said, "When I know that I am dying, not a moment before, then I will tell you a secret which will make you rich and famous."
It was a secret that could be worth millions.
Noël Corbout sits anxiously beside the bed, hoping that she will recover sufficiently to tell him what she'd promised.
It was the secret of the buried treasure her lover, Bérenger Saunière, was supposed to have discovered 70 years earlier. It all began when Bérenger Saunière was appointed the new priest of Rennes-le-Château.
When Bérenger Saunière arrived in Rennes-le-Château in 1885, the place he had come to was a small, rather impoverished, hilltop village.
It was not a promising place for an ambitious young priest to further his career in the church.
It had a population of about 300. It was in a very dilapidated state, no water supply, just a rough track up to the village.
The church was pretty well dilapidated. The roof was leaking, the birds were flying in and out of the building through various holes in broken windows and in other places, and it was almost unusable.
Saunière's new church was originally a private chapel to the lords of Rennes-le-Château, who lived in the castle nearby, which gives the village its name. The church, like many others in the region, was dedicated to Mary Magdalene, which intrigued its new priest.
Saunière had a thing about Mary Magdalene. But of course, the reason that the church is dedicated to Mary Magdalene is because there is such a sort of cult of her and to her in that part of France.
Mary Magdalene's role in Christ's life has been the subject of debate within the Church for millennia. The Bible says she was the only person who witnessed both Christ's crucifixion and resurrection. But then Mary Magdalene suddenly disappeared from the New Testament. Some legends say she fled to France, carrying the Holy Grail, the cup Christ was said to have drunk from at the Last Supper.
In this region, we have a centuries-old great tradition that Mary arrived here. The idea is that Mary Magdalene, like so many persecuted in Palestine, flees and finds refuge in Narbonne.
Myths about her life in the south of France flourished here in the Middle Ages. In the 12th century, a heretic sect known as the Cathars were said to have worshipped her and protected and hid a fabulous treasure that could even have included the Holy Grail itself.
Many mysteries derive from this period. The Cathar, the Templar, the Grail. That is why it is very important for all myths.
The Catholic Church brutally suppressed the Cathars. But their hidden treasure was never found. The myths of Mary Magdalene and Cathar treasure were well known to the new priest of Rennes-le-Château, Bérenger Saunière. In 1885, Saunière's income was low. He had no money to renovate his crumbling church. Like a lot of priests at the time, he longed for more. And yet somehow, he had to get his church into a workable condition. Despite Saunière's meager income, he found enough to employ a housekeeper, Marie Denanot.
The relationship between Saunière and Marie Denanot was something rather more than that of a priest and his housekeeper.
She becomes Saunière's housekeeper and closest confidant for the rest of his life.
In 1886, Saunière said he received a donation from a sympathetic countess to renovate his crumbling church. During the works, something happened that would transform Saunière's life as a humble village priest.
During the renovations, the bell ringer, who used to ring the bells every day, comes down to where the work is taking place and sees a wooden pillar that had been supporting the pulpit lying on the floor. It was opened, and he sees inside a little bottle, a small phial. He picks it up and sees a bit of paper inside.
The bell ringer's great-grandson, Antoine Captier, still has the pillar that was said to have contained the phial.
He told us that he found a document in a wooden balustrade. In this balustrade there was a small piece of parchment. However, we don't know what happened to the document because my great-grandfather gave it to Saunière, and he just told him that it was just a bit of a relic.
Saunière took the parchment away for closer inspection. It appeared to be some sort of map indicating treasure below the church and the graveyard. Saunière ordered the floor of the old church to be lifted. His workers then made a startling discovery.
Shortly afterwards, Saunière found a pot full of gold coins and shiny objects, which was witnessed by the workers, and therefore fact.
Saunière quickly took the pot of coins away, dismissing the find.
He wanted to make the workers believe they were worthless. The workers were naive, but not to that extent.
After this first discovery, Saunière became convinced there was more treasure hidden somewhere in the graveyard, in a crypt known as the Lord's Tomb.
We know from the records that this crypt exists, but we don't know where it is. I think this little parchment contains the location of where one can find the crypt of the Lord's tomb.
Many believe something else on the parchment has made Saunière think the Lord's tomb could contain the missing Cathar treasure. Possibly even the Holy Grail itself.
Discover the past with exclusive history documentaries from History Hit and uncover the secrets of some of the most famous people and events in history. History Hit gives you access to a growing range of documentaries presented by and featuring historians at the forefront of research and debate. Whether you are looking to find out more about charismatic leaders like Cleopatra or to discover the story behind the Industrial Revolution, History Hit will have something for you. We also aim to bring you the stories and legends that shaped our world through our award-winning podcast network. Sign up now for a free trial, and Absolute History fans get 50% off their first 3 months. Just be sure to use the code AbsoluteHistory at checkout.
The priest enlisted his housekeeper and now lover, Marie d'Ernanot, to help him find the tomb.
He searches at night, not in the church, but in the cemetery. And he starts to excavate the cemetery to reach the crypt from the outside. The work is quite complicated because he had to do it at night, and most of all hidden from the villagers.
But word soon spread of the nocturnal activities of the village priest.
The villagers are complaining that he's basically desecrating the graveyard. He's digging up graves, he's moving headstones, he's taking the old bones and putting them into an ossuary.
People talked about how he locked himself in the cemetery and they didn't see him until hours later. So he was looking for something underground.
Saunière's diary then recorded the night he discovered the Lord's tomb.
He writes everything down in his ledgers, the ledgers that I have studied. At a certain point in September 1891, he writes, "Discovery of a tomb. Evening, rain." It was that day that he goes under the church and finds the tomb of the Lords of Rennes.
Some say Saunière discovered a nobleman buried with jewelry and gold. But exactly what he found in the Lord's tomb, he never disclosed.
So what did he find? We don't know. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a secret. However, we are convinced that he found an entrance to a tomb, which led to a subterranean space, which then led him to somewhere else.
Soon afterwards, Saunière began to disappear for long periods of time, and on his return, continue to excavate the graveyard.
It's after the discovery of this tomb that Saunière starts behaving strangely. He's definitely up to something.
I think he was looking for money. He must have been lured by a small discovery of some buried jewelry belonging to the Lords of Rennes.
But something else, very strange, was going on with Bérenger Saunière. Marie would collect from the local post office up to 150 letters a day from all over the world and give them to Saunière. It was another secret they shared together. Whatever Saunière was up to, all of a sudden, he became fabulously rich.
As soon as he starts finding things underground in the cemetery, he starts paying for everything up front. We found he had about 100,000 francs in the bank. He's someone who suddenly gets into a lot of money.
When he first comes into money, he starts to spend it on the church. The weird decoration is put in, the statue of the devil bearing the holy water stoup. There were about 90 anomalies in the decoration, things that are surprising or you wouldn't expect. Somebody wearing a kilt, for example, what's that doing in a biblical scene?
Some believe these strange decorations are clues as to what Saunière had found. What was the significance of two baby Jesuses in the church? One in the arms of Joseph, one in the arms of his mother Mary. What was Saunière trying to say?
One particular example is the big mural of Christ preaching on the hill, and at the foot of the hill there lies a money bag. The money bag has a hole in it, and a gold coin is peeping through the hole, as if symbolically Saunière is saying in this picture, I have found treasure, I've used some, not much, and there's a great deal more to be used.
Some people regard this as kind of, in a way, a treasure map, directions to different places in the vicinity of Rennes-le-Château where eventually you're going to find the treasure.
Once his church was fully restored, Saunière unashamedly began to spend the money on himself.
He starts to buy up land in the village to construct his domain, his estate, his gardens. He has this villa built.
He was a man of great appetites in numerous directions, and his building displayed the luxury that he longed for.
Saunière pays for the construction of an extravagant new tower, the Tour Magdala, named after Mary Magdalene. Saunière even had llamas and a monkey put into his sumptuous new gardens. His new house, the Villa Béthanie, was used for showing off his new wealth, entertaining distinguished guests with expensive wines and food.
The invoices survive for the food and the drink that he bought to throw these parties, and it's vast amounts.
I found his bills. He ordered langoustine, a lobster, 50 liters of rum straight from Martinique. So he's really living the high life in Rennes-le-Château.
He almost does start to become like the king of Rennes-le-Château. He starts to produce postcards, not just of the village, but making sure that he's in the pictures. Almost as if he's suddenly thinks of himself as a celebrity.
Whatever money he had, he spent. And he lived like a medieval aristocrat would live.
In total, Saunière spent around 200,000 francs, the equivalent of several million pounds today. Saunière's spending was so extraordinary, the villagers of Rennes-le-Château started to ask themselves, where did all this money come from? Soon others started asking the same question. In 1902, the new Bishop of Carcassonne, Monseigneur Beauséjour, was appointed, overseeing Saunière's parish. Asked to explain his extraordinary spending to him, Saunière refused.
The new bishop was appointed who started putting his long pointed nose into what Saunière was doing and asking him to explain the source of his wealth, which Saunière stolidly refused to do.
Non, non, juste pour le mot. Juste pour le mot.
Voici les livres.
Non, je ne connais pas 150.
Saunière was removed from his post and banned from giving services. In defiance, he set up his own altar in the Villa Béthanie and continued to attract worshippers. He refused to leave his estate.
He says, my possessions are here in Rennes, so I'm staying here. So actually, he chooses his possessions over spirituality.
Son besoin de spiritualité.
Eventually, Saunière was put on an ecclesiastical trial in the Vatican, which he never attended. Instead, he sent expensive lawyers to fight his case. The trial lasted 6 years, and before it could reach a judgment in 1917, after years of high living, Saunière died of heart failure, caused by liver cirrhosis. Yet, for all his extraordinary spending, Saunière died penniless and without property in his name. It was said that to stop the church seizing his wealth, Saunière transferred his entire estate to his housekeeper and confidant, Marie Denarnaud.
The villagers say that she actually visited Saunière's grave every day and every night, so she obviously remained devoted to him.
In later life, Marie Denano became a recluse, but was once seen wearing some of the jewelry Saunière was alleged to have found.
She's doing it so that the sunlight would shine on the antique jewellery with which she had encrusted both her hands. The neighbour said, "Oh, Marie, they're beautiful." She ran indoors, came back without them, and was never seen wearing them again.
The stories of Saunière's incredible discovery spread. Had he found the legendary treasure of the Cathars, or something even more extraordinary? What was the secret of the mysterious priest of Rennes-le-Château? The first answers to this mystery started to appear in 1946, almost 30 years after Saunière's death, when Noël Corbu and his family arrived in the village.
Noël Corbu is an interesting character because he's mainly a businessman with quite a few business ventures, but he's also had tried his hand at writing novels.
One day, there are people, the Corbu family, who live nearby in Bugarache, going for a walk in Rennes-le-Château. They go to the bell tower and see that someone lives in the estate.
The Corbus discovered the estate was owned by Marie Denano. Noël Corbu's daughter, Claire, remembers the encounter.
The first time we met Marie, when we were children, we thought she was like a real grandmother, dressed in black, very small. She loved to laugh, always smiling.
Having lived as a recluse for years, Marie was delighted with her new visitors.
My father really liked the place. He loved hilltop locations, castles, all these impressive things. My father really liked Miss de Narnaud's property.
After several visits, Noël Corbu was so enamored by Marie's estate in Rennes-le-Château, he offered her a deal.
He said, if we adopt you as a family member, as a sort of adopted grandmother, we will treat you to the very best of our ability. We will be your friends, we will be your family, we will take care of you in return for us having what had been Saunière's old estate.
Marie allowed the Corbus to run the estate, and little by little took Noël Corbu into her confidence, sharing with him the secret of her lover, Bérenger Saunière, and their discovery of buried treasure. But she didn't reveal where the treasure was hidden. She told Corbu she would only do that at the moment she is about to die.
And then she gets a stroke. She can neither write nor speak. Noël Corbu sits anxiously beside the bed, hoping that she will recover sufficiently to tell him what she'd promised.
Marie died in 1953. Childless, she left her entire estate to the Corbus. And then the stories of what Marie had told Noël Corbu about Saunière began to emerge. In a series of sensational newspaper articles, Corbu revealed that Denano and Saunière had discovered a great hoard of treasure. But the treasure wasn't anything to do with Mary Magdalene, the Cathars, or the Holy Grail. It was something quite different, a treasure that was a king's ransom, a treasure that had been hidden and seemingly forgotten by history. Corbu said that in the 13th century, Blanche Castile, Queen Regent of France, had hidden her nation's entire treasury, some 18 million gold pieces and jewelry, somewhere under the church of Rennes-le-Château. It was to pay the ransom of her son, the future Louis IX, who had been captured by the Egyptians during the Crusades.
He loved this story, my father. He loved telling it to his clients, and he made a recording, so he didn't have to repeat it all the time.
According to Noël Corbu, Marie had said that she and Saunière had found just a fraction of the Blanche Castile treasure, and much more was still to be discovered.
Et elle lui dit, mon bon Noël.
She says to him, "My dear Noël, with what Saunière has left, we can feed Rennes for 100 years." She also tells him, "You merely have to bend over to pick up gold."
Marie told Corbu that Saunière's frequent disappearances were when he would go abroad to sell bits of treasure and then send the money back by post. But Marie had died before she could reveal the really vital information, where the hoard was buried, taking the secret of the Blanche Castile treasure to her grave. But Corbu was certain it was down there somewhere.
She had convinced him that there was something of immense value waiting to be discovered. And he looked for it everywhere.
Soon, the entire Corbu family were treasure hunting.
As a child and a young girl, it was my principal activity, looking for the treasure. And with my brother, it was our most important hobby.
Given all the publicity surrounding Rennes-le-Château's buried treasure, Corbu opened a hotel and restaurant in Saunière's old estate to cater for the new flood of treasure hunters.
His clans were treasure hunters, drawn to the history of Rennes as told by my father.
Among them was one of the most famous treasure hunters in France. In 1958, Robert Charroux arrived in Rennes-le-Château.
Robert Charroux was the president of the Treasure Hunters Club in France. He had written several books. He was very well known for treasure hunting. And in Rennes, it caused a lot of publicity.
Charroux used metal detectors to search for the treasure's hiding place in the church and the cemetery. But despite all his experience, Charroux couldn't find the treasure, which quietly pleased Noël Corbu.
I think Charroux said he was convinced that my father-in-law knew a lot more than he let on. Maybe that is why he never succeeded.
Corbout and Charroux' stories spread like wildfire throughout France. So much so that in 1961, French channel ORTF made a program about the mystery. Such was his deep involvement in the creation of the myth, Corbout himself played the part of Saunière. Like many, treasure hunter Jean Brunelin was drawn to the stories of Bérenger Saunière.
It is treasure that has brought me to Rennes-le-Château. We heard stories here and there. Someone made a hole here, others made a hole there. Someone used a drill to blow air from one side to see if it came out the other.
But after years of treasure hunting and several official archaeological digs, no treasure was ever found.
This treasure hunting in and around Rennes became so intense and became, the whole place was honeycombed with these tunnels. And in 1965, further excavations were banned.
But the story was about to take a new, dramatic twist and lead to even more extraordinary theories about Saunière's wealth. It was all to do with the parchment that was supposed to have been found in the pillar that first set Saunière off treasure hunting. Everyone believed it had been lost forever. But in 1967, a book by journalist Gérard Desède sensationally claimed Saunière had found not one, but 2 parchments, and published them for the first time.
The step between it becoming kind of a regional sensation to a national one to an international one, the big step there is a book called The Gold of Rennes.
According to Desède, Saunière had taken the parchments to his bishop, who had advised him to take them to the highest church authorities in Paris. Desède claimed when Saunière returned from Paris, he was suddenly rich beyond his wildest dreams. So had he found a great treasure after all? Desède's co-author, Pierre Plantard, appeared in a BBC interview to give some clues to their theory.
Will the treasure of Rennes-le-Château ever be found?
Ici, vous me parlez d'un trésor matériel. Ne parlons pas de trésor matériel. Disons simplement qu'il existe un secret à Rennes-le-Château.
But if Plantard and Desède were right, and Saunière hadn't found a material treasure, what had he found that had made him so rich?
What they do, they take the Saunière story, the Rennes-le-Château mystery as it originally was, and use it as the hook for a whole other story.
Desède and Plantard claimed the parchments held a secret to prove that the lineage of the last Merovingian king of France, Dagobert II, hadn't died out but still existed today, and that a shadowy organization called the Priory of Sion was founded to protect it. A few years later, it was then a British author, Henry Lincoln, who said he had separately decoded Desède's parchments and took the story even further. He claimed that the parchments were a series of clues that sensationally proved Mary Magdalene had indeed fled the Holy Land for France, but did so when pregnant with Jesus' child. And that Christ's bloodline became the French Merovingian kings, of whom the mysterious Pierre Plantin was the only living survivor. The Holy Grail was known as the Saint Graal, but it wasn't a cup at all, but the Saint Real, meaning royal blood. And this was Sauniere's great secret. Lincoln appeared on American television to reveal his discovery.
The mystery which triggered the discovery which we eventually made, which triggered the whole course of research, was concerned with a small village in France where a priest had apparently found a treasure. We looked into the history of that area, and the Grail kept surfacing. And the Grail, in turn, leads us into the bloodline.
The bloodline was the Holy Grail, and Saunière had discovered it on the parchments. It was an earth-shattering claim that could shake the Catholic Church to its foundations.
It was a huge bombshell for all kinds of reasons. Not only Jesus fathered children, with all the implications that has for our understanding of Christ and Christianity, but also that descendants of that bloodline are still around today.
The revelations seemed to turn the story of the Bible on its head. The bloodline secret was the source of Saunière's wealth. It wasn't the Blanche of Castile treasure, but a huge bribe from the Vatican to keep him quiet. However, just a year later, it was announced that the parchments were in fact forgeries. It was all a huge hoax by Plantin and de Sède. Henry Lincoln wasn't part of the hoax, but a victim of it.
This book is like a punch in the face. It's not possible. In this book, he talks of Merovingians, Order of Sion, spies. It's not possible. So we investigated all these clues from the Sède, but in fact, the Sède was tricking us. We were hooked, and he was just reeling us in.
What their motivation was, nobody knows. A lot of people have regarded it as a bizarre bit of performance art.
But the story didn't end there. 20 years later, the hoax became the basis for one of the best-selling books of all time. Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code took de Sède and Plantin's invention of the Priory of Sion and Jesus' bloodline to a whole new level.
The story of Rennes-le-Château still generates an extraordinary frenzy amongst treasure hunters and writers. For commercial reasons, this mystery is much more interesting to claim that Saunière kept a terrible secret.
But if the source of Saunière's wealth wasn't a huge bribe from the Vatican, what was it? It certainly wasn't by finding the Blanche Castile treasure, as told by Noël Corbu. There is no record of this treasure in any history book. While it is true that Louis IX had been captured, the ransom was paid and he was released. So where had all Saunière's money come from? The answer, it seems, may lie in the 150 letters Saunière was getting daily. What was shown during the trial was that the letters weren't the proceeds of selling treasure, as Marie had said, but something far more grubby. By mail order, Saunière had been dishonestly selling prayers to people around the world, known as trafficking in masses. According to church rules, a priest was allowed to say 3 masses a day. Saunière was getting requests to say hundreds. And by doing this, Saunière had accumulated a fortune.
Alors, comme il a trafiqué les messes.
So, how did he traffic in masses? He was very good. He invented something we are still doing today. He put ads in magazines. Poor priest in a poor village needs masses to restore the church. He received a lot of money.
Il a reçu beaucoup d'argent.
This, then, was Saunière's secret. He was a highly enterprising crook.
Bérenger Saunière a ce tempérament.
It's in Saunière's temperament. He wants to make money from everything. From the moment he finds a new source of income, he is going to use it. He had actually made the biggest part of his fortune by trafficking in masses. But he was also an agent for booze, an agent for oil, he produced postcards, he made money out of everything, and he made a lot of money.
But if Saunière was just a crook, why had Marie always claimed that he had found treasure?
The villagers see him build this nice villa, buy land and give money to everyone. They think it's weird. And afterwards, smart Marie, to give people a reason, says that he has found a treasure. This explains everything.
But the other reason is that after Saunière died, she was almost destitute. Marie needed someone to support her. She had spun a yarn to the corbeaux.
Mais là, elle est maligne, la Marie.
She is smart, Marie. Marie is always scared. She has nothing. What can I do if these people throw me out on the street? To keep them interested, she says, at the end of my life, Monsieur Corbu, I will tell you something that will make you powerful.
So was Corbu just naive, a victim of Marie's story? Or perhaps he had reasons to believe.
Corbu was a very successful businessman, and when he arrived in Rennes, what he needed was to make the place a universal attraction. And so whatever the attraction is, whatever the mystery is, the more you can make of it, the more tourists you will attract.
When Corbu first came to Rennes, there were only on average 200 tourists a year. Nearly 70 years later, thanks to Marie and Corbu's stories, and more recently, the Da Vinci Code, tens of thousands visit to learn the strange tale of the treasures of Rennes-le-Château. And even though so much has been revealed to be a hoax, many continue to search for the tomb containing treasure, or a secret.
You have the feeling that when you come to Rennes-le-Château, you can solve an enigma. I think that explains its global success. It is a game in which you can play a role. In the end, we all need dreams. Who needs the truth when we can have a mystery?